All right, Professor Olivetti here. We're going to move on now to a section of Luke's gospel that focuses on the call of the disciples and various controversies that Jesus stirs up among the Jewish people of his time. These controversies, you won't be surprised, will bring to light the thoughts of people's hearts, whether they are willing and able to accept God's generosity, accept God's desire to save and share his blessings with all people, or are they not ready for that and they are going to reject God's hospitality and want to save God's blessings for the good people or the people they deem worthy, people like them. Let's start with Luke chapter 4. We'll read Burn 52 to 63. And what we get here for the rest of Luke, right after chapter 3, is a lot less compositional material, right? So maybe, I'm not saying there isn't any, there is some compositional material, but the stories in here seem to be based on historical events. They are paralleled in the other Gospels, especially Matthew and Mark, the what are called, the Synoptic Gospels, because they share very similar storylines and sayings. So as far as the compositional stuff that we saw in the first few chapters, which didn't seem to be based on historical events, the latter chapters of Luke do seem to have a historical anchor, at least, if not a depiction of events that actually happened. Okay, so we're starting off here with the story of Jesus being tempted in the wilderness. It's in the other Gospels, and so therefore it has some credibility as far as if we're just looking at this using the historical critical method. Now, no one was there but Jesus. So, the exact events that are there, of course, we should not necessarily think if we were there with a video camera, we would have seen the devil tempting him this way. But we can assume, and assume is not the right word, we can, using scholarly methods, figure that there is something to this tradition, that Jesus might have spent some time in the wilderness, as was common in certain circles in his time, including the scenes that we talked about, and that he somehow came to understand himself as part of the Messianic tradition. And perhaps, or likely actually, if we continue the Gospels, an analysis of all of them, that he very likely did see himself as the fulfillment of that tradition in some way. Okay, so here we go. The Holy Spirit again, filled with the Holy Spirit, right? This was the same line we saw when we were talking about Simeon, right, when he was prophesying in the temple. So this is an important theme in Luke Act, that the Holy Spirit is driving everything, right? So Jesus returned from the Jordan, where, by the way, he was baptized by John. We didn't spend time on that specifically, but in that time, just let me mention that he saw the heavens open for him, and he heard God the Father saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased." And he saw the Holy Spirit descend on him like a dove. So you might in some way say that he recognizes divinity, right? Remember we talked about the divinity and the humanity of Jesus. What I found interesting is the next movement after he is baptized, right? That's part of his story. Kind of the beginning of his mission. He then eventually, he immediately is going to be also have to incorporate his humanity. So at his baptism, you can say in a certain sense, it seems that he realized his divinity. And then Luke is going to immediately say, bam, and here he goes. And now he's also going to realize and integrate his humanity in a certain sense, right? So he's in the desert, which is the traditional place where he'd go to confront evil. And he went there for 40 days, which is a reference to Moses and some of the other Old Testament prophets. Things are always done in 40. There's often 40-day periods associated with the Jewish tradition. So we could call that a continuity there, right? And he is tempted by the devil. He didn't eat anything. He was hungry. So there you go, right? Now, like I said, in chapter 3, they just kind of acknowledge his divinity through the theophany he had at his baptism, where he hears the voice of God the Father saying, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Well, right away, back to his humanity, right? So Luke is stressing Jesus' humanity too. Why? He's hungry, right? The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread." And Jesus answered him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." Now, these stories are not limited to one interpretation, right? But the way that Byrne reads this is that, he was tempted to follow his own self-interest, right? You're hungry, eat. Kind of follow your own base desires. This is what Lofink would have talked about as like religiosity, as the worshiping of one's self-centered desires, right? But he doesn't do that, right? Instead, as Byrne puts it, he chooses to place his powers solely at the service of others, right? So Jesus isn't going to use his role as the Son of God to dominate others, to enforce his will on others. No, he's going to use it to serve and help others, right? Which is fitting because that's what God does. But notice he's tempted to do otherwise, right? Again, he's fully human. Again, this story tells us, like, hey, this is us too, right? We are sometimes filled by the Holy Spirit. We have God within us, right? Holy Spirit lives within us. We are also tempted to follow our own self-interest, but we can choose instead what is good for everyone, right? So again, this is something that, a lot of times Christians, I think, take the wrong way because it's easier. And we say, oh, look at everything Jesus did. He lived like God. He loved unconditionally. He was human and fully divine. But we say, but that's because he was divine. And we kind of miss the point. The point is that if he could do it and he was fully human, right, with the help of the Holy Spirit, right, he could do it. He needed God's help here. He was actually tempted. Then guess who else can do it with the help of the Holy Spirit, right? We can too. So again, Jesus' actions should never be seen as something that are unique to him because he's the Son of God. No, it should be seen as something that is possible for all of us because he is fully human, right? That's the whole point. St. Athanasius said that God became man so man could become God. So please remember that when we go through this, we do these readings. Okay, and